Hello everyone. In this lecture, we will discuss the subject of intersectionality. We will first introduce intersectionality. Intersectionality has grown to become one of the most fundamental principles of feminism today. This concept was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, and it is a framework that looks at multiple intersections of systems of oppression. Before Crenshaw's use of the term in the context of black feminism, intersectionality was used to study experiences of students from multiple marginalized identities by Robbins and Quay. Scholars and activists have now developed ways of looking at intersections of not only gender and race, but also class, caste, ethnicity, sexual orientation, ableism, and other systems of oppression. Through understanding intersectionality, we recognize that identities do not grant us power or privilege exclusively. Identities can privilege or oppress us in different situations or during interactions with different individuals. All our identities are interlinked. While we might derive power from some identities, we might face oppression due to different identities. All oppression we face is interlinked and compounded owing to different identities as well. For example, as a cis woman, I may have less power than that of a cis man in this society. But as a cis Hindu woman, I may have more power than a cis Muslim man. This is of course also situated in broader context of our class, caste, religious and geographical identities, which shows how interconnected our identities, power and privilege are. To understand intersectionality better, we can perhaps examine this quote from Audre Lorde. As a 49-year-old black lesbian feminist, socialist mother of two, including one boy, and a member of an interracial couple, I usually find myself a part of some group defined as other, deviant, inferior, or just plain wrong. In order to understand Lorde's experience, we can't just apply a strictly anti-racist or anti-homo-negative or gender equality perspective. Her identities cannot be seen as standing alone. They intersect, such that her experience of oppression is compounded. They must be therefore analyzed using a lens or perspective that is designed to understand and examine this compounding effect. If someone asks you, who are you? What parts of your identity do you draw from to answer the question? For example, a part of your identity could be that you're a big Taylor Swift or Sachin Tendulkar fan, or a big part of your social identity could be your caste or religion. Take a minute now to jot down what your identities are. The idea of who you are is defined as an identity or what makes up yourself. We all may hold multiple identities at different points in our time. Sure, some of these identities may change, such as our age, and some may continue to remain constant throughout our lives, such as our race. But the truth remains that we always carry with us many different identities. They together shape our experience of the world. We also derive varying levels of power and privilege from our individual and collective identities in different contexts. Intersectionality is a framework through which we can critically be aware of this intricate relationship between ourselves, our identities, and how we navigate the world. The Canadian Research Institute for the Advancement of Women, also known as CRIAW-ICREF, states, Feminist intersectionality analyzes power and the ways in which systems, institutions, structures, socioeconomic and political practices, historical and current, work together to create and reinforce conditions of inequality and disadvantage, and privilege and advantage based on social location and identity. The goal of a feminist intersectional analysis is to understand power relations and the systems of power that create barriers to women's equality so we can remove those barriers and redistribute power equitably. Now we'll talk a little bit about what these wheels of oppression are. The CRIAW's intersectionality wheel, which is added to your resources, is an important tool to understand intersectionality, as they visually depict how oppression compounds and manifests in one's life. This popular visual tool illustrates the concept of intersectionality. Let's start with the innermost circle, which represents a person's unique circumstances. For example, what family you belong to, what level of education you have had access to, and what opportunities you have had, amongst others. The second circle from inside represents aspects of identity. This layer is compounded on the first layer and is a mix of different identity aspects that can be subject to change. such as class, education, religion, social status, age, and identities that don't change, like skin color, where you're from, etc. Together, these aspects combined with your unique circumstances create an experience that is very specific to the individual. Number 3, from the inside represents different types of discrimination, isms, attitudes that impact identity. This could range from ableism, racism, discrimination, and sexism to ethnocentrism, homophobia, and transphobia. The basis for such discrimination is often historical practices of discrimination and ignorance. And the outermost circle represents larger forces and structures that are at play to reinforce exclusion. These structures either develop new forms of oppression or maintain the existing ones. Let's take some time out now to reflect on what intersectionality can mean and look for you in your own context.